Hello friends, Jermaine here and welcome to this second video looking into the Angel Dart framework. So last time what we did was we set up our Angel server, we built some routes, we added hot reloading, and then we finished off by building this template for our homepage. So in this video we're going to be making all of this dynamic and creating a form for adding these articles. Let's begin. The first thing we need to do is update our packages because we're going to need some extra ones for what we're going to be doing. So the first package is Angel Mongo, which contains a MongoDB service for talking to MongoDB databases. The second package we're going to be using is Mongo Dart, which does the actual communication with our Mongo database. Angel Model, which we'll use to model each of our articles being added in our database. Angel Serialize for enabling serializable classes. You'll find out more about that later on. Markdown for handling the conversion of our Markdown based content and translating that to HTML. We'll also need some dev dependencies, and those are Build Runner and Angel Serialize Generator, because we're going to be doing some code generation. Alright, so I'm going to save this and then run pubget in your terminal, or if you're using Dart extension for VS Code, this should run automatically. Once our packages have been updated, we will come to our libsource directory and we're going to be building the model to represent each of our articles. So I'll right click on here, I'll add a new folder, I'll call it models, I'll add a new file, I'll call it article.dart. And then in here we're going to import our serialize package. And then from this package, we are now able to start building out our model. So our model will be called article, or underscore article rather. And then this article will extend model. And then from here, we'll add each of our fields essentially. So we'll need a title for each article. Each article will take a slug content, but also publish date, which in this case is marked as a datetime object. So at this point, it's worth noting that this serializable class doesn't support datetime objects straight away. So what we need to do is to use a serializable field annotation, and then in here we'll have methods to serialize and deserialize our datetime. So serialize would convert our datetime object into a string format, and deserialize will reconvert that string format back into datetime. I'll create two functions. So this function will return a datetime. We call the date from string, which will take a string and convert it to a datetime object. So first, let's ensure that whatever argument gets passed in is a string. If it is, then let's pass into a date, or else we'll just return null. Also, we'll do the opposite. Take our datetime object. If it's null, just return null, or we just convert it to a string. So now that means we're able to use this in here. Serializable field takes a couple of named arguments, so a serializer and a deserializer. So our serializer takes a symbol, which will be our date to string function we defined here, and then our deserializer takes in our date from string function, and then we need to specify what the type it serializes to, which will be a string. Then lastly as well, in order for serialization to work, we need to mark this whole class with the serializable annotation. So I'll save this, and then next we're going to be using the Angel Serialize Generator we installed to create a couple of helper and utility classes from what we have here. So in order to activate it, we'll have part. So that'll be the name of the generated file, which by convention ends with a g.dart extension, for Dart files at least. So let me save this. Then if we open our terminal, we run the command pub run build runner, you can say build. And once it's finished running, we should see article.g.dart generated here. So first it generates a model class with all our properties defined here and so on and so forth. It's got an article encoder and decoder, utility class, etc, etc. You can look at all of this in your own time, but it generates all of this, which we're going to be using throughout our code base. If you if you wish to not have to run build command every time you make a change, you can use watch, which will generate the file, but also will keep watching our projects for file changes and try and run this build again. So I'll leave that there. So before we use this our generated model class, I am going to first define a service. So under lib source, let's create a file called services.dart. So in this file, we're going to be configuring our Angel application to use services. And in particular, this will be our MongoDB service. I'll import the Angel framework. I'll also import the MongoDB package, the MongoDart package, and then we will import the Angel Mongo package. And once those are imported, we'll define a feature called configure server. This will take an Angel app instance. Start by creating our database object, and then the database would be, I'll call it Angel instead. Then next, we'll open our database connection, and in order to define our service, we'll do app.use, and then the name of our service will be called articles, and then in here we'll instantiate the Mongo service class, which takes in a collection. So here we define a collection by doing db collection, then our collection will be called articles. That is as far as we need to go with that. So from here now, since we've got our model class generated, let's create a template that will work with that model class. So this will be our article form, and in this article form we'll begin by extending our layout.jl template, and then we'll define the contents for our block, which we named content. We'll have a container div containing a row, containing a column with a padding on the y-axis. I'll close that off, which will contain a form. So we'll set the method to post, and then the action will be to /new. Then we'll set the encryption type to be sent as a multi-part form data because of the form. Then let's go ahead and add our form fields. So right now I'll add the field for our article title. This will be a text field. Just set the name to title, give it a class, and all these classes are from Bootstrap. I'll give it some placeholder text and close that off. Then let's duplicate this code for our article slug. So I'll change title here to slug. Call that slug. Call this slug. Slug to article. I'll duplicate this one again, and this will be our publish date. Now use underscore for our publish date. I'll explain why in a bit. Let's change this, and then our placeholder. Actually, in fact, we won't need a placeholder. We'll set the type of this to date. I think if the type is set to date, you wouldn't see the placeholder, but yeah, we'll test that in a bit. Okay, so the names of these fields are based on how they are named in our article model. So if we come to our article model, we are going to be using this article serializer class, which will take in the fields from our form to create this article object. But if we look at the publish date, it's actually named like that. So it's looking for a form field which is named like that, so with an underscore for publish date. So that's why in publish date I'm not doing capital D, I'm doing underscore and then the D. I think that's important to know because yeah, I got tripped up by that. And lastly, we are going to specify is the body content. So let's add our label, and this will take a text area. We'll name this content after the data model, and this also takes the form control class, and the ID will be article content, and we'll give you a number of rows, say 12, then we'll close this off. Then now we need to specify our submit button, and this should be it. Okay, so from here now I am going to come to our routes.dart file, and then we'll add a new route, and this route will be to the new endpoint, and here we'll simply render our article form. So at this point I'm going to run our server. Let's go check it out, and if I click add new, it brings me here to our new page. So remember I said earlier we may not need a placeholder for input type dates because by default it shows this for dates. Alright, so now we should be able to enter Should be able to enter some content, and then when I hit submit, of course nothing happens because we've not defined the endpoint for our submission. So let's go do that. We're going to be in this file, and then all we need to do is app.post to the new endpoint. This will contain the request and response objects. We'll mark this as async. Firstly, we need to retrieve the form's contents. So we'll do our await request.parse body, and once that is run, this would give us the body as a map object. So I'm going to save this, and in fact, let's test this out. If I reload this page and I hit submit, you can see here our map object contains the contents of our form. Right, so at this point, this is where our generated article classes come in. So first, we need a handle to our article service, and the way we'll get that is by doing app.findService, and then the name of our service. And then what we can do here is create an article object. We need to import our article model. Then we should be able to use the article serializer from map constructor, and then we'll just pass in our request body. So this will produce an article object for us. This article object also defines some extra properties. So one of them is created at, which we need to specify ourselves, which takes a datetime object. So we can just do a datetime.now. And secondly, it takes an updated at property. So we can set that to datetime.now as well. And here is where we create the article. So I'll get a reference to that created article, and then we will await on our article service .create, and then we'll call the toJSON method on our article object, so that'll serialize it for our database. So once that's done, we can render our article form again. So I'll save this, and then just to test this out, I'll put some breakpoints in here. So let's go to the browser, let's go to our new endpoint, add some markdown, and then I'll hit submit, which brings me here. So to see what that looks like, we can log in article here, which for some strange reason it shows null, but it's actually produced it because we can see that here. So I'll jump ahead, and at this point it should add an entry into our database, which it doesn't seem to, because our services.dart file here, the problem is we did not register it. So let's import our services file, and then I'll remove this parenthesis, and we'll say services.configureserver. Okay, so let's test this piece of logic again. Let's restart the whole server. Okay, so we're getting this exception message, which from here it looks like we need the mirrors reflector class. Okay, so that should be fine. Let me stop the server. So I'll come to main.dart, and we need to import the mirrors library from the Angel container package. So Angel container comes with Angel framework. Okay, so once that's done, in our Angel instance, we can define the reflector named argument. We'll pass in a mirrors reflector object. So that should do. And I'm going to run our server again, and let's reload, and we're back here. Okay, so let's enter our post details, and once we're done, we'll hit submit. If we hover over that, we get an instance of a hooked service. So I think the service is working now. I'll move on. So it gets passed in, and if I resume, okay, it looks like it's been created, it's been added to our database, because we see the contents here, and then we should just see the form rendered again. So we've got our contents added in the database. Now we can make sure it's added by checking our database. So here's our database, Angel articles collection, and here we see our first entry added. Right, so let's do a couple of things. So with this render function, we're able to pass in our local variable into this article form. So what I'll do is I'll define a map object, which will take the article we've just created, but then I'll send it as an article object. So article serializer from map, and then I'll pass it the created article, and then I'll pass a flag called created, and then I'll set that to true. And let me get rid of these breakpoints. So with this set of metadata now, we are able to retrieve that in our templates. So if I come to our templates, what we can do here now is for our value, we can look at the article key that we passed in, and then we use a question mark, meaning if it's defined, then we should render the title. We'll do similar for the other fields. So here, if the article exists, then it should give the slug if the slug has been defined. If the slug hasn't been defined and it's null, then this will just be, value will just be an empty string. And we'll do the same for our publish date. And then for our text area, we'll do article content. So let me save that. And then with the created key, what I can do is I'll add a column, and in here we'll render a successful alert message. So the way we'll render this, it will be done conditionally. So Jael allows us to use the if attribute, and you can pass a condition in. So if created. So that means that if I come back to our routes, if this created key is set to true, then we'll render the success message. And here I'll just say successfully created, and let's say I'll add a link to view the article. So we can do posts, and then we can append the slug of the article we just created. Okay, so I'll save this, and then let's test this out. Come back to the browser, let's add a new article, and then when we submit, you get successfully created, and then view article. So if you look at the bottom left, it's got a link to the article we just created. And if we look in our database, so I'll run this query again, we see this new article added. The next thing for us to do is to display the articles we've added on our home page. So for now, we're using placeholder content. We will come to our routes.dart file, and then over here we are going to refactor this line and make this an await operation. And firstly, we need a handle to our article service. So you know what, I'm gonna grab that and I'll paste this at the top of this function. What I'll do is I'll retrieve our list of articles by calling the index, and then for each of the map objects in our article service, I'll map over that, and then I'll return our article, which will be converted into an actual article object. Then now we can pass the result of that into our articles. And because the map object returns an iterable, we need to convert that to a list. So I'll save this, and let's go to our template, articles.jl, and then over here we are going to do, I'll get rid of that, and then I'll use another of Angel's special attributes. This is for each, and then we want to loop over each of our articles, and then we use as to define a name for each of the article objects. So we just call it article, which means that from here we can log out the article's title, and we'll specify the URL to view the article. So we'll have the article slug, then in here we'll have the article's published date, and then we'll have a link to read the full article, the same as that one. Okay, so if I save this and I come to the home page, okay, we get no such method error. The method index was called on null. Okay, so for some reason article service gives null. Okay, so I think we probably need to define it in each case then. So I'll put this back here, and let me save, and let me reload. Okay, there we go. So we have our articles rendered here. So this is my first post, second post, and let's fix this date, the display of that date. So the way we can do this is by going to our article model, our article.dart file, and then we can add a couple of getters. So we can have a string to retrieve the full date, and we'll do that by retrieving the day from the published date. We can retrieve the year from the published date. So let's test it with this. And if I come to articles.jl, can do article.full_date, and let's come here, and there we go. So we get a day and get a year. So now to retrieve the month. To retrieve the months, I'm going to define a static member called months, and this will contain the months of the year from January to December. And now that the months are defined, I'm able to, from the published date, retrieve the month. And because the month is a number starting from 1, we need to pass that as an index into our months array. So I'll do month, the published date month, and then I'll -1. So I'll save that, and then let's reload this page, and that gives us our month, January. I hope you found this video informative and that you learned something different today. If you really enjoyed it, do hit that like button. If you haven't subscribed yet, do hit the subscribe button, and also hit the bell notification icon next to that subscribe button so that you are notified when new content is released. Of course, if you got any feedback, if you got any comments, let me know down below. Thank you.